All right, so look at the difference here from off to ultra. It definitely makes Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 look stunning, but at what cost? All right, so let's go into some of the details here and start looking at what this ray tracing actually does, or reflections is actually doing in the sim. And you can see right around here, so this is where you're going to keep an eye on this area here and under this bridge here, around all these edges and around this boat. Here's a good one for the distance. And you can actually look at the side of this building as well. So let me just change it and I'll show you what it looks like when we go to low. So this is low, and it's actually a massive big improvement here. As you can see now, we can see the building actually reflecting in the water. There's a little bit of reflection happening down here by the sun. It hasn't really changed anything to do with the actual sun. Like if I go back to off, you can see it doesn't really help us here with the sun. But if I go back to low again, and now you can start to see around the boat. But if you look around these edges here, you can actually see it's kind of fuzzy. There's a whole bunch of little dots, and that's the ray tracing. That's what's happening here, is essentially it's doing this real-time reflections, and it's only doing a small amount of passes on this, so it's getting this kind of fuzzy look to it, and that's going to be the biggest difference here. So let's advance here to medium, and you can see now there's still that fuzziness happening on the edges, but you can see there's a lot more of this kind of solid looking reflection here. And here as well, you're going to see a bit of an improvement. If I go back to here, like you can now kind of pick out the edges a little bit more, and you're starting to see some more reflections under here. The boat, you're getting a little more detail around the boat there. And let's go up to high. So now we're on high, and you can see, again, you're seeing that just kind of everything become a little more crisp and around the edges here. And then we'll go to ultra here. So again, ultra, same thing. And you even look around this little section here, you can start seeing it crisp up a bit. So I'm just going to flip back and forth between a few of these here. So this is between ultra and high. Actually, I'll go back here. Let's go back to low, or off, and to low. So I'll flip back and forth a few times so you can really see the difference here. And look at the boat up there. You can see it's everything's just looks more alive. It looks more vibrant. It looks more realistic when you have it like this. Now let's go from low to medium. And what I want you to do is pick out what actually looks good to you. Do you need to have ultra with this setting? And if your system can't handle it, maybe it's one of the settings that you bring down to even low, because low looks pretty good. Let's go to medium. You can definitely see an improvement here. There's 100% an improvement. Look around this up here, you can see the improvement happening right up there. But is that a big enough difference in order to make it worth it for you to go up to medium if you're struggling with your system? Now let's go to high. There you go again. So a big difference in here. Everything kind of darkens up with this reflection. And the reason it's darkening is because it's kind of a sunset here, so all the shadows are pretty, or all the reflections are pretty dark in this image. But you can look at it's darkening up. Then let's go to ultra again, same thing. Everything is darkening up. Down here, actually, you notice there's even more detail now. It's not only just kind of a dark shadow, you're actually seeing some detail of the boat in the water. Whereas you didn't really see that too much here. Definitely don't see that on medium. You can start seeing that detail here on high. And then on ultra, you definitely see that detail in the water. So you're getting more detail. You can see even reflection up here in this boat. So there's overall, it's just a lot more detail. And that's what you're looking at when you come into ultra. Now, let's look at our FPS. If I look at our FPS here, let's just push play on this and let it play, so it goes up and down. But you can see we're getting about 147, 148. Let's go to low, and we're still around 147, 148. Hasn't made a big difference on our system. And you can see GPU is almost maxed out here. Normally it's not, but in this scenario, it's actually almost maxed out here. So if I was actually running this on 4K, I might have been maxed out, and we might have had some more issues. But I'm running this on 2K with 2K monitors, so it's not quite maxing things out. Now let's take a look here. Still 146, 147. Right now we're on medium, as you can see, and then let's go to high. And actually a little bit of an impact. It's now hovering around 145, 146. So we've lost 1 FPS in this. And then let's go to ultra here. We're at about 145, 146. So really from off to ultra, we've probably lost maybe 2 FPS, 1 to 2 FPS. So with my system, it's not making a big difference, but it could, if you had an older card, older GPU, likely it's going to have a big impact, especially ray tracing on a card that's not really meant to do ray tracing. Okay, so this is our next scenario here. I wanted to try one with the sunset, like a true sunset behind here, to see if there's any real reflections that are going to cause us issues with the sunset. So here, this is off, and let's move it to low, and you can see there's some reflections down here, but not a whole lot. It's not making a big difference compared to what we had before. One of the things I was wondering was, is it going to have a big impact on the sun? And again, even the last one, we didn't see a big impact on the sun reflecting in the water. Again, we're seeing the same thing, not seeing a whole lot of difference. Here's medium, and there's high, and here's ultra. Not a whole lot of difference. We're just seeing some more detail when it comes to this compared to what we had before. So just a little bit more detail. And here I come back to off, and you can see we're losing a lot of that detail up here, but really it's not making a big difference when it comes to this one. And before we move on here, let's just take a look at the FPS. So we're looking at about 149. Let's just hit play on that. So 149, 148, about the same. And up here we're about 148, 150, so it's even going higher. So I think it has zero impact on anything. So now let's move on to the side of the plane here. You can see we have this nice black shiny side of the plane, and that is currently, it's off, so we have no reflections on here, and it kind of makes it look more like a flat black. But what if we change it to ultra? Now you can see there's nice reflection. Everything looks so much shinier. It really does make a big difference on the plane, and you can see all this detail in here. So let's go back and just take a look here and see if it's making any difference on FPS for this from ultra to off. And we're about 89, 99, and let's go to off, and about 100. So it's making a little bit of a difference, but again, only probably about 2 with this system. But again, it could have a big impact on your system, so you have to play around with this, but at least you're seeing the detail changes here. Now let's go to low, and you look at this, it's actually pretty nice still, but everything looks a little fuzzier. If you look up further here, you can see that this detail just not quite as defined. And let's move it up to medium. You can see that this all became a little more defined here, and it's just a little more crisp, a little nicer. You can start seeing a little further into the plane with that reflection. And then here we have a little bit more detail coming in. Everything's a little crisper. And when we come up here to ultra, you can even see some more detail up in here now and along here. So everything just looks a lot better. So again, this is really going to depend on your system. So you're going to want to make sure that you are setting this up yourself up for success. But there is a difference all the way up to ultra in this case. But if I had a system that was struggling, I'd probably look at going to low if I could. Of course, if you have to, you can go to off, but I really do like the reflections. So going to low is probably a good place to be if you have any struggles. And really, it's not going to be overly noticeable compared to ultra. Like, there is a difference here. And really, if you had to sacrifice going to low, it looks good. I would say that low looks good, ultra looks amazing, and off, if you have to, it's not a bad option. It still looks okay. You're still getting some kind of reflections happening in here, probably more just the lighting, but it's still, if you can get those ray tracing reflections, then this certainly makes a big difference. So next we're actually going to talk about the windows in the plane, because this is from the inside of the plane, and this is one that I found people actually want to turn off, because there's been some comments that it's hard to see out your windows. It's because of the reflections and the color of the plane inside. So if you have really white interior on a plane, it can be hard. You get that really deep reflection off the interior of the plane that's going on to the windows, and this can make it hard to see out the cockpit. So we have right now, you can see this is off. If I play this, you can see we're getting about 87, 85 FPS on off. And if I go up here to low, it's interesting because we don't actually see any reflection happening yet. Now, if I come up here to medium, we're still not seeing any reflections here. So all the way up to medium, I'm not getting any reflections on the window. If I go up to high, now you can see we're getting these reflections down here. We're getting some reflections in here. So now once we hit high, we're starting to get the reflections on the inside of the windows. And then ultra, it's just going to deepen those up a bit. And now you can really see the reflections happening in here. So you can see the communications. You can actually read it off the reflection here. And compared to high, which is a little harder to read, but still it's pretty clear. And again, all the other settings, there's absolutely no impact on reflections. So here we're getting about 87, 88, 87, 88, about 88 FPS, about 88 as well. And here we're getting about 88, actually up closer to 90 when we go to ultra. So it's having zero impact on my settings or on my system. So this next scenario here really showcases the reflections. I've made sure that the water is completely smooth. There's not a wave out there. We have zero wind at all. So it's completely still, which is going to give us a really serious reflection happening off all these boats and stuff. So right now it's off, and I'm going to move it up to low. So this is low, and already you can see a huge improvement. Now you can see in the water, and actually some would say this probably looks pretty realistic, having kind of more of a fuzzy look in the water, because that's realistic to what you're going to see. You might not have a perfect mirror reflection happening. So, but let's take a look at what happens when we go up to medium on this. And you can see we got a lot more detail now. You can start seeing all this detail in the water. And over here too, you can start seeing all this detail underneath the trees reflecting into the water. Then we come up to high, and that detail it's just improved quite a bit again. And let's go all the way up to ultra here. And ultra, we can really see everything, all the boxes here. We can see everything within the water here, and off to the side here we can really see all the detail that's happening. And also right up here under these trees, we can see a ton of detail. You can even see this building here reflecting into the water. Let's take a look at that building for a second, and let's look back at high. You can still see it. Medium, you can kind of see it. Low, you can't really see the reflection of that building. But again, it's pretty amazing. But having actually on ultra here might almost be too reflective. It's probably fine for this kind of water with zero wind. It probably would be pretty reflective. But if you think about it, having on low actually does have a really realistic look to it. So I think in this scenario, you probably don't even need to have it on ultra. It certainly doesn't hurt. And if you are not struggling with FPS, like let's take a look at here, the FPS on this one, 152. And let's see what we got up here, 148. So we're losing a little bit now in this case. We're losing probably 2 or 3 FPS. So I do have the RTX 4090 again. So that's why I'm not losing a whole lot of anything when I do increase this all the way to ultra. But if you are struggling and it is, you are seeing kind of a lower frame rate from this, and it's making a bigger impact on your system, you know what? Low is not that bad. Going all the way through my different scenarios here, you know, low isn't that bad. We got the only one that makes a big difference here is this window one. But if we look at this one here, we got some reflections here. This one here, this one didn't really make much of a difference at all. And then down here, again, low still looks really good. So if I had to pick one, if I was struggling with my FPS, low would be the one I'd go for. If I have a beefier system, I might just go up to high. Ultra is kind of just that cherry on top. If you have a system that can handle pretty much everything, then go with ultra. But if I had to choose, I'd probably go with high and put some of that extra power somewhere else, because I might need that extra power in some other part of the system. So if you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye.